Righto. Welcome everybody, Mayor, councillors, staff and press to the last Environmental Services Committee meeting for the this term of council. So apologies, we have apologies from Lynette Lovett, Selwyn Price, lateness for Thelma Bell, and Alice, are you going to?
An apology for early departure. I have a funeral to go to.
Thank you. You need to finish once?
I'll move we accept those apologies.
Thank you. Have we seconded it? Thank you,
I'll second it.
Councillor Rawlinson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Extraordinary business. Conflict of interest. Confirmation of minutes of the 25th, 7/19. Any changes? As you've all read them, have we a mover?
If there's no changes, I'm happy to move that those
Thank you,
minutes
Councillor
are correct.
Rawlinson. Have we seconded it? Thank you, Councillor McMillan. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. 5.1, the dog policy. Welcome Rick to the microphone. Turn it on, Rick. There's bound to be a question in here.
Thank you, Mr.
Right.
Chair.
Have you anything you wish to add to your report?
Through the Chair, no. Everything as per the report. Thank you.
Would you like just to state this is a statutory report? Just to
Yes, it is a statutory report. Section 10A of the Dog Control Act requires us to produce an annual report.
Okay, and it's already placed. It goes on the website and all the other places. So anyone that wants to find it, they can find it.
Thank you. Again, through the Chair, the recommendations are reflective of requirements of the Act, but we will post on the website as well.
Thank
in
you.
addition.
Righto. Any questions there on this? There's quite a bit of it. Councillor Urquhart.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Catchpole. With regards to, or with these requirements, is there a statutory requirement to notify affected parties that maybe a dog has done some damage, and whether that party should be notified? I know a situation where I believe they haven't been notified of what's actually been the outcome of the offending dogs, whether the dogs have been put down or whether there's any compensation or any direction that they should take. So is there any statutory requirement for that, or is it just sort of handled through the council itself?
Thank you, Councillor. And through the Chair, it's best practice to report back to people, which we do. I understand there's a case in question that you're referring to. There was a letter sent out which the person in question didn't receive. On follow-up to that, I've dealt with the matter. All paperwork, documentation has been sent out as necessary, and they were quite happy with the end result.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Rick, I have just at the bottom of the dog pound activity, 5.1.6, I note that 170 dogs were impounded, 7 euthanised and 18 rehomed, yet 399 were reported. And I'm wondering if you could just help me understand what happens to the difference between the reports and the impounds.
Can I, sorry, through the Chair, can I just ask you to clarify what you're saying from the reports? Oh, right, okay. Thank
so
you.
I'm looking, you found it?
Yes,
Thank you.
So through the Chair, often a dog can be reported as wandering and there'll be no sighting on arrival. So the reflected figure of 170 is the actual dogs that were impounded but that can be from various results, not just wandering.
Thank you for that clarification. And supplementary, if 7 were euthanised and 18 were rehomed, is it correct to assume that 145 were reclaimed?
Yes, that is correct.
Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr Chairman. Could you tell me, Rick, how many impounded dogs are there more than once? The same dog?
Thank you through the chair. That is something I would need to go back into in the stats, but we could provide that information for you.
Supplementary, we should know that because we've got a fine, and I've pushed for years that multiple dogs, the same dog comes in, this fine should get cheaper and cheaper, more and more expensive. I think that's imperative that we know if it's a repetitive dog coming in, ratepayers are subsidising that, feeding that dog.
Through you, Mr Chairman, we'll find that figure for you, Councillor Wilson. However, it's likely to be very low. There's only 1 or 2 that I know of. Others have elected to not collect the dog because of the fee. And then we have to pay to have it put down if it's not suitable for rehoming.
Councillor Brown?
Is there a statutory requirement or any requirement to find dogs that have never been registered?
Through you, Mr Chairman, no, I don't believe there is.
Is that a gap in the legislation?
I suppose it could be seen as a gap, but then if you're actively out looking for them, there are constraints around what you can go knocking on somebody's front door for. We do have privacy laws and various other things, so you can't run campaigns like what was tried once elsewhere in New Zealand and Christchurch, a dobbin your neighbour, dobbin a dog campaign, which sounded really good at the time, but didn't go down terribly well.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Rick, just on table 2, you've got the total complaints received, and they're going down quite a bit compared to last year. It's about 400, and the wandering the same is about 260 less. My question is, are the owners getting more responsible, or less dogs, or any ideas?
Thank you. Through the chair, our reporting mechanism, computer mechanism, is now we can pin down what is the others and so on, and sometimes in the past the other complaints has been linked to, say, stock, where there's been a dog issue, but these are actual dog stats now that we can report far more in detail. So.
Councillor Rawlinson?
Just to add to that, I've noted that too, that the wandering numbers are down, but there's an Ashburton information page on Facebook, and many dogs are being found very quickly. If somebody's got a missing dog, they put it on there, and usually within an hour or 2, they'll put a thank you, the dog's been found. So I think we're missing a lot of them, and it's reflecting in our numbers simply because they're being found a lot quicker through that mechanism.
Thank you. And through the chair, in addition to that, there is, yes, the use of social media is coming into play in a lot of these areas now. Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
I'll move the recommendation if you like.
Okay, thank you. Have we a seconder? Okay, 5.1.2. We have a mover, Councillor Brown. Have we a seconder? Councillor Rawlinson. Right, all those in favour?
Mr Chairman, could I just ask a question about the recommendation, please? So the recommendation states, as per the legislation, that the report will be notified in the prominent local newspaper. Which newspaper will that be?
Thank you. Through the chair, we would be led by the comms team on that, but I believe the Courier is the go-to one for that.
Mr Chairman, I'm wondering if the mover and seconder, for the sake of clarification in the recommendation, would be happy to include that the local newspaper would be the Courier and that the report would be sent within a month, i.e. the 5th of October.
Through you, Mr Chair, I think we'd need to clarify that that is correct. Rick said he would need to ask our comms team which paper they normally put it in. So I think we would need to do that, and I don't know that Reuben would know it off the top of his head. He hasn't been here long enough.
Happy enough with that reply, Madam?
I would just like to add to that, rather than clarify which one, I think we have two local papers, a daily and a weekly, and it would be prudent to have the report, if we're not paying for it, it
We
should
do
go...
pay for
Oh, we do, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, yes.
I was thinking it was like a report, not a pay one. So in that case, I'd advocate the weekly one because it goes to every home.
So anybody got any major objections that this is not handled by the comms team? The recommendation stands as moved. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. 5.2, district licensing, report there. Rick back in the hot seat. Any questions?
Yes, please, Mr.
Councillor Brown?
No,
Sorry.
Madam Mayor says.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just in regards to this committee, I note on page 10, 5.2.9, publication of DLC decisions are actually put straight on the council website, which is great that the community see it. Yet when I look at the delegations for this committee, we have delegations for the responsibility of alcohol licensing under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, and yet we don't seem to record this committee as one of the joint committees or working groups that report to us, and it would seem appropriate perhaps for the next term of council that those decisions are also coming to this group, but I'm just keen to hear officers' response.
Well, we could do that through you, Mr Chairman, in light of this morning's discussion. That could be part of the overall look at information. The fact that they are on the website, I suppose there's nothing to stop councillors looking at them there. So the information is available, but happy to revisit that.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
If there are no more questions, I'm quite happy to move the
Any further
recommendation.
questions before you do that? You're going to move recommendation 1, 2 and 3?
Correct.
5.2.2? Okay, have we seconded it? Councillor Bell?
I would like to second it.
All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. All right, 5.3, new presenter here. Ian, would you like to just give us a rundown and anything that you'd like to add to your report?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I think the report speaks for itself, except for the fact that there is a slightly confusing numbering issue in here, in that the report refers to roads 1 and 2, whereas the application refers, and the plan on page 18 refers to roads A and B. So, in your interpretation of it, it should be that road A in the plan is road 1 in the report.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr Chairman. Village Green, to me, envisage an area rather than an actual street. But is that, we've got nothing in this district that we refer to as a village green?
Well, it is, through the chair, sorry, it is a suffix, it does have a suffix on it, of Village Green Drive, and this whole estate, if you'd like to call it that, is subject to a structure plan in the district plan that was put through a plan change back probably around 10 or 15 years ago. So to my thinking, it is actually appropriate for this location. There is actually a tie to it.
Councillor Brown? Councillor Rawlinson?
I would like to move the recommendation 5.3.2 that the proposed new names for the Village Green subdivision be named Village Green Drive and Springdale Drive.
Okay, seconded. Councillor Malcolm? All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Somebody like to move the activities report? Councillor Urquhart, Councillor Brown, thank you. Building services? As usual, sweeping along pretty sweetly. You got the graphs, consents. Anything on the first part of that before we move to earthquake-prone buildings? You're all looking at your screens, you should have done your homework. You're a star. Earthquake-prone buildings, you want to say anything on that one, Michael? The answer is no, but you will.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there is a link there on your agenda, which we have been uploading all the buildings. They change almost daily because I get new reports in. So even this morning, 2 new reports. So 2 placards have to change and 2 reports have to go out and another site visit. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing. But for this district, we're well ahead of a lot of the other districts. We've got a very proactive lot of building owners. There are currently just about 13 active consents at the moment ongoing for strengthening. So, and with the deadlines coming up in the next few years, that will only increase.
Any questions on that, on earthquake-prone? Planning? Limbs, 6.2.4, 6.2.3, sorry. Righto, move to the next one, 6.2.4, highly productive land. Would you want to say something about that, Madam?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the highly productive land, the national policy statement governing that, I think is obviously of interest to this district because the map showing what is considered to be highly productive land around New Zealand, this district features prominently in that. I appreciate that the timing isn't perfect with elections and everything else, so if councillors didn't want to be involved in forming a submission, that's absolutely fine. Staff would be submitting anyway. But a suggestion there that if there are councillors who are interested working with staff on a submission, then we could do that and get something back to, we'd have to move fairly quickly is the only thing, to get that submission back to the 26th of September final council meeting.
Okay. Well, I've taken a few liberties here to try and make this thing work. Spoken with the staff and they've suggested they probably need a chairman and 2 others, so I'll move in the first that Councillor Rawlinson become chairman in one of the parties. Have we seconded for that? Councillor Wilson, thank you. And I've also been taking some more liberties. I asked Councillor Wilson, and I'll nominate him as somebody that knows the rural land. I'll nominate Councillor Wilson. Have we seconded? Councillor McMillan, thank you. And another liberty I take was ask Councillor Brahm, who I consider town and country, and I'll nominate him for the 3rd position. Have we seconded? Thank you, Councillor Urquhart. Righto. So we'll go back to the recommendation that the committee be appointed for a working party. So somebody like to move that? Councillor Bell, Councillor Urquhart, thank you. Righto. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. So those 3 people will no doubt hear from planning to move that along very soon. Righto, it's my great pleasure to say that I'm bowing out of this and say thank you to the staff and the councillors, the staff which I've worked with. This has been a very appreciative that I could get on so well with so many staff. So, not known for that. So it's been a great time, and I'd have to thank them. They've led me very well. They realise that they're a bit of a novice at doing this sort of thing, have opinions in short bursts, but they've got me through it. So thank you very much to all you people for really working so well with me and the council. So there really hasn't been too many arguments, and nearly everything that's come up's been able to be resolved. So hopefully that can continue, because you'll all still be here and I won't be. So thank you. We'll close the meeting and ask Councillor Wilson to start the next one.
Probably haven't called me a licence, but yeah, I'm sure Leo will know, but he's away at the moment, so yeah. Yes, it is. Yep, and I've got some other stuff